My documentary is called Where Power Lies, and it's about the underrepresentation of women of color in the film industry. It's important to me because as a young woman of color who wants to go into film, I've seen like roadblocks for the people that I look up to, and even then there aren't that many people that I can look up to and say these people, you know, look like what I look like, have gone through experiences that I've gone through, and I wanted to figure out why that is. I think some of the challenges were finding like a clear storyline for the documentary, like a clear path, and also getting footage that I could use for B-roll. A success was being able to talk to these like really accomplished people in their fields and talk about their experiences because they've done some really cool stuff. I want there to first be acknowledgement that there is underrepresentation, because I think even just the existence of that problem is in debate a lot of the time. So I'd hope that we can acknowledge that and also take steps to support female filmmakers of color.
The gauze has been kind of torn from our eyes, mostly, right? Like, I mean, I think we've spent the last, I would say, sort of Me Too spanning through the summer of 2020 and Black Lives Matter until now. Like, I think that the gauze has been torn away a lot more than it has been before, but we have not progressed to the stage of figuring out what to do about it constructively from there. Like, I think we're still in sort of the grief and the anger and the what the hell do we do now phase of things.
I mean, I think we're seeing with the Oscars and some of the other award shows, the Emmys, I think we're seeing a lot more representation of women of color in the talent categories, like in, you know, the actress and the writer categories, but not as many when it comes to some of the more technological aspects of the industry. There's just not as many of us doing those more technical jobs. And they're harder to get. They're harder to get into. There's a barrier in terms of just the cost of getting into the more technical aspects of the field are prohibitive for a lot of people. So you're not seeing as many in the award shows. You're not seeing as many women of color winning awards for non-acting roles.
So the show is called Divide, and it is sort of a bit of a creative take on sort of like a dissociative identity story, not where it's not another personality trapped in someone's body, but it's actually a little more supernaturally like the twin that sort of like died in the womb, so tied to this person, has lived on somehow, and is sort of emerging in this girl on her 18th birthday, who is dealing with this identity crisis and lots of life decisions, and is sort of emerging as their own person. So it's sort of a little drama dealing with that, small scale, but we sort of got to be a little ambitious with it in terms of, you know, our TV production class. We took an extra semester, independent study, got cameras, shot it out of school with various actors, so it was a lot of work, but I think it's paying off.
So in her family, there's a lot of tension, and her parents are kind of pulling her in two different directions, so she feels like herself is split in half. And so a chimera is a real thing where you absorb your twin in the womb. So this is it in a more literal sense. And the twin that's actually presenting itself does so when she feels like she's being pulled in those two different directions. So the one side of her that's being split is herself, and then the other one is the twin. So we did a more literal sense. The most challenging part was probably actually the logistics of it. So coordinating all the people and the timing. And we had a period of time in between semesters where we took like a month or two break just to coordinate all the logistics because it was getting really complicated. And in that, we lost time on the actual production. And also like more technically, since there's a lot of like special effects and stuff, we just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose what was at the root of the story. So it was kind of challenging to find that balance.
I would say that the most rewarding part now, kind of sitting here in the editing room for a few weeks, is getting to see the performances. In particular, each sort of main actor character has a big emotional scene, or at least a scene where they kind of get to steal the show a little bit, give a monologue, or lean into their character. And that was really exciting to watch play out on set, but when you're so sort of beat down by the stress of it all, and we only have however many days, however many hours with each person, it's harder to appreciate in the moment. So here, after finally getting it all edited and really stopping to watch everything back, I was definitely really taken aback by just how many great little performances and little moments we got throughout the production. And I think, no matter how complex a film or a television show is, you always have those little moments where people bring that little extra 110%. And so it's really special to kind of watch that all come together.
I would say that there's two things. One, that not everything's so black and white, and you don't have to be confined to a box as just this one specific person, and it's okay to like have all different sides of yourself that you express. And second of all, I would say that there's a lot of pressure, like for our age group specifically, to like know exactly what you want to do and have your life's path all set up, but it's okay to not know and figure it out as you continue to grow and go through life.
Yeah, I would say that with every, as someone who is very interested in film and screenwriting, the joy of getting to really tell a story and see it be put together is grounding it in some, not even necessarily metaphor, but some subtext or greater idea that everyone can sort of relate to. And so, as Lily touched upon, really getting to sort of dive into what I think is the greatest moment of crisis for people our age. And very literally sort of put that to screen in an interesting way was a great way to tell a story and a great idea for a story. And so I'm glad we did it. I think this is a really exciting production and definitely a memory, a high school memory I'll mostly cherish, even though a lot of it was challenging.
In life, we don't always have the benefit of choice. You do now. Alicia, you and your sister are the future of this family. You owe it to us and yourselves to be successful, to make your legacies. You have to make your choice. Do not force me to make it for you.
My documentary is called The Human Side of World War II, and it's about the experience of my grandfather, who was a conscientious objector in World War II and afterwards. I chose to do this topic because it was very personal to me, and I think I could tell a really good perspective on the kind of contrast between going to war and staying back behind from it, as I have family that have done both things. And it's really a rare chance to talk to someone that has objected from the war and kind of gone through that experience. The most challenging part would be copyright issues. The World War II has mostly copyrighted material. Some of the best things are copyrighted, so it was trying to find what was available for me to use, and in terms of music and videos and images. The most successful part was just being able to be the first in my family to really talk to my grandfather about this kind of stuff, because he never talked about it when he was young. And to see my mum's and my mum's family's reactions to the responses he gave. Well, I definitely want to educate people on objectors and what they did and what their process was like, and generally what people's lives like for those that were just living through the war in their day-to-day lives, in their cities, in their areas, in their regions, and what they kind of had to do throughout the war, because not everybody went and not everyone was eligible to go. So it was definitely to highlight the people and the human side of the consequences of the human side of war. In the UK, there were over 60,000 men who could have gone and served but decided not to. These people were called conscientious objectors. It turns out that my grandfather was actually one of these objectors. I think to get a better understanding, we should go to England and chat with him. So here we are in the south of England, and this is my grandfather, Graham.
Hello.
Graham was born in 1936 in the southern coastal town of Barry, Wales. Barry itself was bombed heavily during World War II because it was a thriving coastal town. He was about 10 years old when the war ended, and I began by asking him about his experiences of growing up during the conflict.
Well, there was a lot of activity in the town. We were taken to school, and it was a bit of worrying time because they didn't know how it would affect us, because our school was high on a hillside, and it was very, very pronounced that any planes coming in, they thought we'd be a direct target. So they built some air raid shelters close to the school so all the children could run in if there was an air raid siren. My mother used to give us a big cuddle, and I didn't know why until after the war, when she said, we thought, very dramatic, she thought, oh, we might never see you again. Well, of course, we didn't think like that when we were young.
The name of our documentary is Flowers Don't Grow Here.
The documentary focused on my grandmother. She's a Ukrainian refugee who came to America due to the war. And it just shows an insight to what people in Ukraine are going through right now.
I think the most challenging part is putting everything together and making it look as good as possible, because it's really hard to tell such an impacting story like this.
I think the most rewarding part is seeing the final product and just seeing all the hard work we put in. I want people to take away that even though this war isn't happening here, it's still an impact on many people's lives.
I think what I want people to take away from this is sort of just to get an inside look of what the lives of people who have been impacted by the war in Ukraine actually look like.
До войны мы жили с мужем хорошо. Он работал, хоть и уже и пенсионер, но работал еще. Я дома занималась домашними делами. У нас есть небольшой приусадебный участок. Я много времени отдавала своему любимому занятию, ухаживала за растениями, садила разные, выращивала разные виды растений. Мне это было интересно. Ну, как бы обычная, спокойная, размеренная жизнь у нас. Я родилась в России, на севере Томской области. Приехала в Украину, когда мне было первый раз 17 лет. И вот 50 лет я живу на Украине. Мы когда приехали, был солнечный, яркий день. Мне понравилась страна сразу же. И я никогда не думала и не хотела вернуться в Россию. Там была моя семья, мой дом, мои дети. Все было хорошее в жизни моей. Рождение детей. Вся моя жизнь была связана с Украиной.
Когда ты услышала, что русские вторгнутся в Украину, какие были твои первые мысли?
Об этом говорили по телевидению много, что война возможна. Я никогда не верила, что это возможно. Я никогда не верила, что русские нападут на Украину. Этого не было, я не думаю, не только у меня, я думаю, это у всех в голове. Никто в это не верил. И это был шок.
Я прочитаю.
The name of our show is Muslim Man on the Street.
And I'll explain it as a Muslim kid going to the streets of Boston, asking people what they know about the religion of Islam.
And then we explained what they actually are so we can educate people.
I chose this topic because I thought it'd be cool, because normally people don't think of this as a school project. They just think of it as something they see on the news.
The most rewarding part was managing a project and seeing it come together by our independent work.
The most rewarding part is when we finished getting the footage for going to the streets of Boston.
The most challenging part was learning how to effectively distribute tasks among group members.
The most challenging part was keeping on track with all the work I had to do. When people watch my show, they get to learn new things about the religion of Islam.
Do you guys know what the religion of Islam talks about, like Quran, the Prophet Muhammad, or Sharia law? Have you heard of any of those terms?
I've heard of the terms, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you guys know anything about it?
Not like specifics, but we know that those are like what they focus on.
Okay.
Do you know anything about Islam?
Kind of. Very slow. Yeah.
Okay, so who knows more?
Oh. You. No.
I know, like, for me, Islam is like one of the most important religion, with Judaism and Christianism as well. For me, it's like a way of life for people who are like Muslim. And about like Quran, it's more like as well like a way like how to behave, how to be like in the world, and to share like values with other people as well.
Depending on which area you look at, Islam is practiced very differently. So it depends on the interpretation of Quran, interpretation of Hadith. Personally, I think there are parts of the world that practice Islam that is a little bit more conservative, and maybe the way that women and men are put together in society, maybe there's a little bit of a discrepancy in terms of their equality, I suppose. But there are some parts of the world that practice Islam which, women and men stands together.
The name of the documentary is College Worth It.
It's really about analyzing if the cost of college is worth the experience that you get in return. I feel like the most challenging part was probably getting all the clips to line up and make a story rather than just them lined up randomly, and editing them so that it sounds good rather than just a bunch of clips thrown together.
Part of the reward was seeing like when the clips were put together and edited, how it looked, and you can see like the hard work that was put into it. It looks good.
I just want everyone to watch our documentary, and yeah, maybe we didn't completely change their mind, but at least open it a little bit. Kind of remind them that there isn't just one path and that there's multiple.
I want them to take a look at like themselves, see if college is for them, seeing all the like stats, seeing some of the people that actually went to college, seeing some of the kids that are in college now, like different experiences, and see if it's like something that's for them or something that'll help them be successful.
In America, after high school, most students are typically pushed towards a college education. But the cost can vary from school to school. According to Times Magazine, the cost of a year and room and board and a tuition at Vassar College in 1931 was $1,200. That's about $19,000 in today's dollars. According to Vassar College today, the total cost of attending their university is a whopping $78,580. But the average American worker makes around $51,480. With tuition at some schools costing more than the average yearly salary, it leads us to ask the question, is college really worth it?
Hi, I'm Jacob. I'm a current senior at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts, studying lighting design and technology.
I attended the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT.
So I went to Union College, which is a small school in upstate New York, 2,500 kids.
I started out at NYU. I went to NYU out of college, out of high school, excuse me. And I went to school a couple years ago.
First generation college student, because my father and grandparents did not go to college. I went to Holy Cross College in Massachusetts, and then later I went to Loyola University in Los Angeles to earn my master's degree, and then I completed my doctorate at Boston College.
Did you know that Americans have $1.75 trillion in total student loan debt, including federal and private loans? $28,950 owned per borrower on average, and 55% of students from public four-year institutions had student loans.
There definitely were some challenges, and there were definitely a lot of people like me who were struggling there. One of the, I went into aeronautical and astronautical engineering, and that cohort was about like 115 people. As I recall, there were only 13 women. I would say most of my life, people were encouraging me as a high-performing student, which I was, to go. I found that to be very hard. I wasn't sure where to get support around that. And I didn't let it stop me. I would say I'm a little bit stubborn. And so I continued with my studies, knowing that I wasn't going to get support from that particular individual, and really sought support from another supportive professor and certainly supportive classmates. I'm happy to say that I, completed my education at MIT in 4 years, and all of us who graduated in 4 years were really like, we did it.
So our production was called Aimless, and it was a talk show where Ben Wertheim, who's not here, and we'd sit at a desk that would be right here, and we'd talk about various topics. There were current news topics ranging from coronavirus to things going on locally in Needham, a lot of sports topics, and then we'd bring some random news stories that were relevant, sometimes irrelevant, that we found, and we'd talk about those as well. So it was pretty much just a talk show. We thought that it wouldn't be too difficult of a task to do. Like if we there were just the two of us working together. So if we tried to put on like a big production, like maybe like a game show or even like a scripted show with like a plot or a storyline, it would be difficult for just the two of us to take care of that. We need maybe help from other people in the class, or we just need to work harder. So we thought, what's something that we can do where it's primarily just the two of us being able to do it. One of the most challenging parts was thinking of topics. There's a lot going on, but we kind of had to scramble to decide what we wanted to talk about, and sometimes those ideas didn't come very quickly. And the most rewarding part, I think was watching it back when I was cutting it up and editing it, seeing how stress-free the recording was, because we were pretty much just sitting and talking, and then when the camera wasn't on, we were just sitting and talking. It felt like the show was very natural and normal, and I liked that.
Kind of a farming guy.
I get, but I also feel for them.
Favorite cow product on 3. 1, 2, 3. Welcome to Aimless. I'm Kevin Barnett.
And I'm Ben Wertheim.
Aimless, the best ranked talk show ever. We're just gonna get right into it. Topic 1 is about everyone's favorite COVID-19. Big question right now, Ben, is to mask or not to mask?
It's a tough question to answer, especially based on where you live and what you believe in. I mean, personally, I think masks definitely help. I would love to take them off as soon as possible, but if it puts you at that big of a risk, is it really worth it? Probably not.
You have to look at the vaccination rates. If we're in a place where the vaccination rates are low and there are people at risk of being seriously ill from the virus, I think the mask is a good thing to do. But if everyone's getting the vaccine so they can not wear the mask, then I feel like there should be a threshold, and I think the threshold is different for every place, but there should be a threshold where, like, okay, enough of us are vaccinated, we can